some reason he's saying that one of the best measures of your aging is like your nighttime erections. So I'm starting doing this treatment where it's like you shockwave your penis, etc. And he's like, I'm going once a month, etc. I'm like, dude, I have that machine in my house.
I feel like I can rule the world. I know I could be what I want to. I put my all in it like no days off.
Hey, Jack, is this aging stuff, this anti-aging stuff, is this legitimate?
Anti-aging kind of it's emerging trend, right? And I kind of feel that it's hard to know if this is a scam or not. And then why do we give Brian Johnson, Dave Asprey, etc. any credibility? Because how do we know that they're good at anti-aging? They're in their 50s. Dave Asprey can say he wants to live to 140 and stuff, right? And I realized like it's really powerful and dangerous to criticize someone's appearance. Like I don't like it either. But for me, the only measures we have about if these guys' stuff is working is their aging score thing, right? I was just thinking of an analogy and I kind of felt it's like saying that someone's a great marathon runner, but they're only at the halfway point. Like maybe these guys are good at avoiding injuries, so they're more likely to complete the marathon. But how do we know if they're going to get a good time in the marathon? We'll only know when they're like 100 or something. In comparison, so these are the people we look to as the influencers, even like Dr. Rhonda Patrick for women. She's in her 40s, I think. So they're all middle-aged. Peter Attia, Huberman, they're not 100 years old. So how do we know they're good at anti-aging? They're only halfway there. I mean, Sam, you had a better anti-aging score. You couldn't upload your results, right? But you would be like number one, I think, on there from your thing.
Yeah, Shaan, I did the Rejuvenation Olympics. Like basically the Rejuvenation Olympics, it's this test done by True Diagnostics. It's like a blood work company. And Brian Johnson has a partnership with them. And I think the science is still like iffy. But the idea is like if the length of a cell that you have, I forget what the cell is called, mitochondria or something like that. There's a theory that like the length of that is correlated to your biological age. I did this test, Shaan, and I scored great. So great that I messaged Brian Johnson and I was like, "This is wrong, right?" And he's like, "Well, no, like you're like the number 3 on the Rejuvenation Olympics." And the thing is like I'm a 80-20 type of guy. I do like 80% great, and then I like fuck off for 20%. Like I eat poorly sometimes, but I just think that a lot of this, the takeaway from when I did that thing was, it's mostly genetics. I think I do mostly good stuff, but there's people who do so much better stuff, and I just think that it's like largely genetics.
But because one of the only measures we have is this score, then it means that's the only lender of credibility we have to if you only like you guys are able to present this podcast because you sold your companies, right? So you have some legitimacy there. But the only legitimate litmus test we have here is your aging score. But then it's like, okay, Sam, you have legitimacy, so you can just say, oh, I have a great score because I have Coke Zero every day. And then everyone buys Coke Zero and thinks that's anti-aging's best supplement, right?
So why do you spend so much energy on this then? Because you're spending money, you're spending time, yet it sounds like what you're saying is, look, the science, the measurement is iffy, the incentives are a little iffy because there's a lot of money to be made by claiming certain things. You know, it's not clear the cause and effect. We don't know what really works, what really doesn't work. You've spent $50,000 on supplements and your summary was like, I didn't really feel anything. Maybe if you're deficient, you might feel something. But you're a smart guy. Why still spend the time and energy in this space?
Because actually, I've tried out all these different things, right? And Tony Robbins actually has a book about all the emerging health stuff that he tries out, etc. So 99% of it, I don't notice anything. However, 1%, I do notice big things. And for me, it's kind of like, okay, we don't know what works, what doesn't work, but I've only got one life and I've only got one body, and just experimenting, I can find those 1% things that are very impactful and like under the radar and stuff.
The 1% stuff, if I had to guess, is just eating mostly plants and animals and lifting heavy weights and like going for walks.
So actually not for me, but yeah.
Oh, well, fuck me then. All right. What is it?
So one thing, and this sounds crazy as well, right? This is the thing. All of these things have all the science, and they're like, and Dave Asprey or someone could be like, okay, this like extract of blueberry, it reduces your aging because it does this, etc. Like, and then here's 50 medical studies, etc. One thing that actually has been a game changer for me, my family, the science just doesn't make any sense. Like the science isn't there, and I don't spend much money, but I've spent $15,000 on this thing, and that's like the low end one. It's called Energy Enhancement System, and
that's what I call sex, my friend. It's like, Sarah, is it time for some energy enhancement?
Want some EES tonight? So what is this?
So basically, at the high end, these machines cost over $100,000 to set up. Again, the science, when I'm looking at it, like I'm a tech guy, right? So I'm going in, I'm in the waiting room, and I'm looking around, I'm like, dude, this is just a normal computer monitor. Like, what's the deal? And they're saying like, oh, these are all, there's like 16 of these computer monitors and computers all laser aligned, and it creates an energy vortex in the middle of the room.
Let me explain. If you Google this, you're going to see a photo. The photo looks like a doctor's waiting room, except the chairs are literally lawn chairs. We're talking $30 lawn chairs, the type you would bring to like your kid's soccer game. And then the room has 8 TVs, and the TVs... Dude,
this looks like a sports book. You ever go to Vegas and where you can bet on sports, and there's 18 different monitors, horse racing over here, basketball over here, and you sit in the shitty chair? That's what this looks like.
And like, you know how like when you were a kid and the cable used to go out and it would be like a bunch of like colors on the screen? It basically just looks like that.
That is it. Yeah.
That's what I want to let you know. That's what I'm looking at. And I want to let you know this sounds incredibly ridiculous, what you were saying.
Jack,
but go ahead.
I'm open-minded. Continue.
There's also people claiming that this cured their cancer. Like, if you look what this can be used for, they just say, all right, whatever's wrong with you, this will cure it. This cured cancer, this cured AIDS. But I go in, and I'd actually been suffering for a year with severe headaches. I had this thing where it's called new daily persistent headaches. It means basically you wake up one day and you have a headache every day. So I'd been struggling with that for a year, and I tried loads of stuff like ozone therapy, ketamine, like I tried everything. And I actually think that this EES thing is the only thing that worked. I just went in there and I sat in a lawn chair for an hour, maybe 2 hours, and then just came out, and in my stomach, like I can feel my stomach like reorganizing, etc., churning. But not only me, my wife, it cured her migraines. Her sister came out, and then she'd been like having trouble sleeping. It like cured her sleeping issues. And then her mum did it as well with us. Like, it's crazy. Actually, Tony Robbins you can pay like a lot more and sleep in the room overnight. So Tony Robbins has spent 2 days in it. So I have no idea about the science, but I've tried out so much stuff, and I actually think this was the only thing that worked, even though the science, nobody can explain it. It doesn't make any sense.
It also doesn't help that when you Google energy enhancement system, the first listing is their website. The second listing is paperwork from the state of Nevada about how they're being sued. So like, not a good look, Jack. Not explaining the science. Second listing is a lawsuit that they're facing. This sounds ridiculous.
Where do we go from here? I'm just playing. Jack, I think this is very interesting, to be honest. I also, again, I can't emphasize this enough. What's interesting about you is that as crazy as you sound right now, you're actually a very smart guy. And the cool thing about you is that you're a very independent thinker, meaning I think if somebody presents something to you, you're quite skeptical by default. Even things that are like consensus, you kind of question like, wait, why does that work? How does that work? Are you sure that works? But you're also extremely open-minded and experimental, which means you're going to land on random things. I don't know if this is one of them, but like random things that are kind of non-consensus, but work, right? Which is, as an investor, those are things that you want. As an entrepreneur, those are things that have served you well. And now in your post-entrepreneurial career, you're doing the same thing, which I find interesting.
I think I'm kind of just like if Brian Johnson drank too much coffee and just got ADHD and tried out a bunch of stuff. Like, what I really admire about him is like if he's testing something, he's like testing like, okay, how does this affect my blood work to know, is it working, whatever. Whereas I'm just like, okay, let's just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Like just try out everything. Like some of the stuff that Brian was trying, like was just messaging him on Twitter. I'm like, dude, I was trying that like 2 years ago. Like some of the different emerging stuff, but I was not actually, I just tried some things and then see, all right, does that do anything? Like he had talked recently about, for some reason, he's saying that one of the best measures of your aging is like your nighttime erections. I don't know if you've seen this. So he measures his erections.
Yeah. Looked into it. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm starting doing this treatment where it's like shockwave therapy, that you shockwave your penis, etc. And he's like, I'm going once a month, etc. I'm like, dude, I have that machine in my house.
I didn't see that when I visited. You should have let me give it a whirl. You should. Why don't you tell your guest that? I would love to give him that thing a try.
So what's the word on that, Jack? Does it do anything?
It actually is yeah. I don't know how.
Should we talk about non-health stuff for a bit?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was going to tell you if you want, because the other bit is like, yeah, thanks again for having me back on the pod, because meet so many interesting people and your exposure has grown so much. And then I've met a number of people even in Portugal that listen to it. And so I was speaking to some listeners and they said, okay, what we want is like, they said to me like, okay, Sam and Shaan, sometimes they just tell stories too much. So we want actionable stuff as well. And we want business ideas. So one idea that I can share with you.
Is that what you got?
I've got one business idea. I was considering it, but then it doesn't make any sense for me, but it seems to make sense, I would think, for other people, is that kind of like doing like the Samwa brothers.
By the way, did you, Shaan, he just kind of like, a lot of people are complaining about your podcast because of this, so I'm going to fix it for you.
Also, the complaint was like, yeah, you guys talk too much. It's like, it's a podcast. What are we supposed to do?
It's like, don't worry, I've got the solution.
Like, I want things that are actionable, specific, useful, insightful, and not that other stuff that they usually do.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the Samwar brothers.
The Samwar brothers, like, they cloned Airbnb and brought it to Europe.
So the Samwar brothers, wait, we got to give context. Yeah. Samwar brothers are these three German brothers who are famous because starting in like 1999, they copied eBay, but for Germany. And within 90 days, they started and sold it for close to $100 million. And then they did that with Airbnb, Amazon. So they would just find Silicon Valley companies, and their whole thing, they didn't use great words because they're German. They're not allowed to use this word, but they called it blitzkrieging. They would blitzkrieg the internet. So they would find Amazon and do that in Thailand. They would do Airbnb, but in France, whatever. And oftentimes they were so hardcore, they made them massive to the point where they couldn't even, like, they tried to build a company to sell to Groupon, but their Groupon competitor got bigger than Groupon. And they're like, shit, no one could buy us. And so they're famous for doing that. Anyway, go ahead.
So I was thinking you can do something similar, but for just like bootstrapped businesses. Like it doesn't need to be a tech VC type thing. And just one dumb example is like in San Francisco, and I think they have it in Austin, etc. Like you can get a Dexa scan, DEXA, for like $25, $30. And
body spec. It's awesome.
Yeah. And the test takes like 7 minutes, and they've just got the process down amazingly. They have a van with this Dexa scan machine in it, and they're just giving people 7 minutes appointments. Like go in, do a scan, and gym people, and many people in general just love it because it's I think it is the most effective way of measuring body fat in your body. There's different methods you can use. I believe this is the most accurate. And it measures like muscle mass. So if you're working out at a gym, it tells you if you're gaining muscle or not. And in San Francisco, it's really accessible. But then in Portugal, for example, just one example, like you can only do it at a hospital. And in Lisbon, like it's not anywhere else in the rest of the country, and it costs like $200. You need to drive there. Body Spec was bootstrapped, and they built it to like more than 2 million in revenue, even with just like 14 vans, I think. And the rollout strategy is pretty simple. Like you just partner with like CrossFit gyms, and you just park in their parking lot. So you're like, all right, on Monday, we're going to be at this CrossFit gym. On Tuesday, we'll be here, etc. So I felt like just cloning that in Portugal. You can get a used Dexa scan machine we went to Mr. Beast's house, and he has one in his office. Actually, it was just people coming by, and then everyone thinks it's cool to just do a DEXA scan. Like he asked us, like, "Oh, does anyone want a DEXA scan?" I've got one in the office. You can buy it for like $50.
It was great, by the way. One guy jumped on the Dexa scan and we all bet his body fat percentage. It was just like the ultimate, like, you can't do this in society anymore. But we were like, no, he's for sure 18.3. No way. I'm going under. And then somebody got it right.
How much are those machines?
I think like 50,000. And that was more affordable than I thought, because a whole body MRI scanner, which looks kind of similar, but it's doing an MRI scan, that's $1 million. And so this like 50K is reasonable. And then I saw some used for like 15,000. And then you just put it in a van.
Patrick Campbell, our buddy Patrick, just bought one.
Oh, he did?
He lives in Puerto Rico, and he bought a Dexa machine, and he put it like, I think in kind of like a community, like he has like a gym, and it's like kind of like, he made it like a community area. So like anybody in his kind of expat neighborhood can come there and like, work out and do it. So he did it as like he's interested in it, but also it will attract other health people and like kind of a social thing almost by adding this machine.
Yeah, I used to do that as a kid, but we did it with breathalyzers. like we'd buy a breathalyzer, go to a party, we would all surround it and like try to guess. Yeah. But doing with the MRI or whatever would be a lot more fun.
So Jack, the idea is to SAMWAR body spec. So you basically clone the body spec bootstrapped business model in Europe.
Yeah, because you could launch it for like less than $50,000. I mean, a van, you can probably buy it on finance as well. And this medical machine, just like finance it, etc. And then you just get one van, and that could kind of serve all of Portugal even. You just be like, all right, on Monday, I'm in Lisbon. And then on Tuesday, we'll be in this region. On Wednesday, we'll be here. And you book people's 7-minute slots. When that's working, just either get another van or just get another van in Spain, in Barcelona, or in France, like, because it's just not out here. But it has strong appeal, it has wide appeal, and it's affordable. Like even my wife is not into this kind of thing, but she's interested. Like, how is I'm working out, so is it working? Like, I want to see, am I gaining muscle and stuff? So yeah, that was one idea.
That's a cool idea. I like that.
Have you guys seen Prenovo? Have you seen Prenovo, Shaan?
Yeah, I've done a Prenovo scan.
So I'm gonna go do one as well. It's a pretty like wild idea. I don't know if it's effective or not, but basically, getting an MRI, like I think we've actually talked about this, Shaan. Like I think in 50 or 100 years, we're gonna look back and we're gonna be like, can you believe that since the beginning of time, you could have cancer or something bad growing in your body, and you would just have no idea. You'd have no idea that it'd be like an intruder in your home. Like, I don't know, there could be someone down there. We're not sure. And oftentimes, or some of the times, they say, well, had you just found this earlier, basically had you come through our front doors and gotten this MRI, we could have solved this. Like, this was a very solvable thing. And so they kind of they're taking that idea, and anyone can pay money. It's $3,500 for one, or $1,000 for like a lower end version. And you could walk in off the street and get these MRI full body scans. And I don't know if they're great or not, but the idea of that is cool. Was it cool, Shaan?
I mean, it's definitely cool. You go, you lay down, and they basically do a full body MRI, which normally either like would take a long time. It'd be like 4 hours or something, but they do this in 1 hour because of they basically have rejiggered traditional MRI machines. This is what they tell you, right? So they say, we've rejiggered the MRI machines, and now we can do it faster, and we can get higher resolution, we can get more images, and then we have special software that can read it, and all this stuff. And so I went there, laid down, watched Top Gun, and came out, and they were like, cool, you don't have cancer. I was like, all right, guess I'll just go back to my day then. And that was that. I thought that's kind of amazing. And I love the mission of it. So I love the mission of basically understanding what's going on in your body, being more proactive versus reactive when it comes to, like you said, so many things that if we had caught this sooner, that's one of the great regrets of life, right? And that, it's like the Tesla model. They're starting with this really expensive thing that only rich health nuts can do. And then, but the goal is over time, get the cost down through, economies of scale, as well as like the technology curve going down so that, these become, instead of a few $1,000s, they become a few $100s to do, and then more people will do them. That's the idea. Now, I must say the counter argument, which is, I was pretty pumped about this. But I'm also a noob. I'm a layman. I don't know the science behind this stuff. I don't know what's real and what's not. I showed it to a friend of mine who's a surgeon, and my best buddy's from college, and I was like, "Hey, I did this thing. Have you heard about it?" He's like, "No, let me check it out." And so he's like, "Cool. Can you send me the scan?" And I was like, "Oh, you can actually, yeah, you can get the file, like the folder. Here's the zip folder of all my images." Because he was like, "That doesn't sound right." He's like, "I don't think you can do what they're saying you can do." He's like, "I don't believe that you can get that many images at that resolution using this technology, nor do I think you can see what's actually like a dangerous thing without doing the, like, you drink the thing and then it's contrast, it lights up differently in your body." He's like, "I don't believe that." And so he's like, "Show me the images." So I show him the images, and I'm trying to defend it, but I also don't know shit. I'm like, no, it's technology. Like, the guy, he had the story, his friend died. So, he was motivated, and he's like, what are you talking about? Just show me the images. I showed him the images. He's like, "So these are normal MRI images. These are not," he's like, "First of all, this is less images than they say they have." He's like, "Look at this. On their website, they say we take this many slices, this many cuts." He's like, "Look, there's 27 images in here. So where's the images?" He's like, "Secondly, this looks exactly like an image." He's like, "Thirdly, I could see your penis in this." I was like, "Oh, God damn it." And he's like, "Fourth, the resolution or the ability to see what's actually going on, like, this would not be useful enough to do any kind of diagnosis." And then I was at a dinner with the guy who started Prenovo, and I was like, "Hey, not to be a buzzkill, but like, I did a scan, talked to my doctor buddy," and he starts laughing as soon as I talked to my doctor friend. And he's like, "Oh, I know. And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to say it anyways." He said that it doesn't make sense and it didn't really work, and that there was not as many images and the resolution. He's like, "No, that's, doctors always say that. They do, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Well, isn't that a bad thing if doctors always say that?" He's like, No. I mean, like, not all doctors, but, we hear that a lot. I was like, "Cool. So what's the answer?" And, what would I tell my friend that would have him not believe that I'm, getting theranosed here? And he was like, "You need, like, our software to be able to, we have like machine learning." And he starts saying some words like, "We have special software that reads this." I was like, "Cool." But I felt kind of like he brushed it off. Now, it might have just been because it was a dinner and he didn't have time to get into the details. And maybe he is really sick of just hearing this over and over again. I'm not sure. But I personally didn't walk away super convinced that in either direction, that this is like super useful or not. And I'm saying the whole thing because I've seen a lot of people promoting this thing. And just, if it's useful, here is a personal anecdote counterpoint. Do your own research and figure it out. But that's kind of where I landed with it, where I thought, well, if somebody can't explain something simply to me and in a way that's convincing, then I'll just err on the side of it's probably not miraculous. Is kind of where I landed.
To say one pro point, Sam and I were at a dinner, and the lady said, like, she just had a feeling that her boyfriend should do this scan. She wasn't sure why, just kind of had a feeling, and then did the scan, and they found a lump. And
he had cancer.
He had cancer,
and he got surgery like 2 months later.
And the surgeon was like, "How did you detect that you had this? You don't have any symptoms. And if you had caught this just like a few months later, you actually would either be dead or not be able to speak right now." And so they are becoming like advocates for this in their marketing videos and stuff. So that's a pro that it did catch it ahead of time.
And I have heard that also from other people too. And when you go in, they say 1 in 20 scans. So, 5% of people who come in have a potentially life-saving diagnosis. Now, it's hard to verify a claim like this. It's hard to know. But I have heard anecdotally other people say, "Oh yeah, we did go and we did find something." So, it's not nothing. But even besides that, as a business, this thing is gangbusters, right? They make so much money off this. They've got, I don't know how many locations, but they just raised like $70 million to expand Prenovo. And I think they're in 20 cities around the country now.
So one thing as well to say is, like, I've done this thing called QBio, which is funded by Google, and they're at least 70 million in funding, perhaps more than 100 million. It's kind of a competitor to Prenovo, etc. So I've done that in America, and they similarly say, like, "Okay, well, I was the chief medical officer at Google, and we have all these Google engineers, so we do AI, and that's why we can do it in 45 minutes instead of 4 hours, etc." Like you're saying, Shaan. I did the same thing in India and got exactly the same results, and I was only doing it for 40 minutes. Like, I think they're just Silicon Valley branding.
They're also Google engineers in India. Turns out there's just a lot of Google engineers out there. Google engineers, like the Harvard Extension School graduate, right? It's like, there's a lot of people that have this stamp.
So one other business idea I did think after going to this retreat, because this retreat, as I said, it was $6,000, but
what was it called?
It's called AIWO is the center. But $6,000, it included that MRI that in America you're paying more than $3,000 for. And that was just like a few hours part of it. This was a whole week and included your hotels, etc. But then speaking to other people, they were like, many other countries have amazing medical tech. Turkey, Korea, etc. The challenge is is branding, and also like the printouts might be in Korean or Turkish. So I think what this guy, the AWO place, is doing amazing is he's targeting people that are interested in biohacking, following Brian Johnson, and then he's getting the influencers. So he just got the guy who's number 1, number 2 on Brian Johnson's leaderboard. He told that guy, hey, you can come for free, but just refer 8 people. And you also be there to help people interpret their blood test results or whatever. So get all these other people to pay $6,000 and I'll give it to you for free. I feel you could just brand a biohacking center in any other country if you have strong links to the country. Because what they were doing here is they don't have their own MRI scanner. He just took us to all these different labs in India. He just made connections with them and they kind of just got us to skip to the front of the queue, So a concierge medical for anti-aging, but you could do that in other countries.
We had a buddy, Jack. I don't know if you remember this. Shaan, you might have known him too. When we worked out at the Founders Dojo, they had this crazy business and it didn't end up working, but they had a lot of people who were interested, but they couldn't get them over the line. But basically, if you want to get a boob job or other types of plastic surgery, you could get it in America, of which it's elective and it's very expensive, or you could go to India and get it done, or Mexico and get it done. And the claim is that the doctors are as good, the care is as good, but it's 5% of the price. So instead of, I don't know how much a boob job costs, but let's say instead of $20,000, it's $1,500 or $2,000. And these people had created this business it was all on medical tourism, which I didn't know that was a thing. And they got a lot of interested customers, but because they were a startup, they could convince these people to trust them and things like that. But it was actually pretty interesting when they told me this. I was like, there's no way people are going to do that. But there are a lot of people willing to do that.
I remember that. John Howard was doing that, right?
John Howard. Yeah. I don't remember why it didn't work out. I guess they just couldn't get people over the line. But we were in this office but guys were mining Bitcoin and all this shit. And they were like in this little room trying to convince these people to fly to India to get like their
like a root canal.
Yeah, get like a root canal in like Mexico. They're like, yeah, you can go on the beach afterwards and just sit there. Like, and it was just
I know a lot of people that actually do this. And, I think all he missed was it was just hair transplants in Turkey was all he needed to do. That, Jack, you got a beautiful head of hair, but have you looked into, can you explain to me what's going on with the Turkey thing? Why is this, seems incredibly popular? And also, why Turkey?
I'm not sure why Turkey. What they were saying in India is they're just like, hey, we've just got so many people here in India that he's like, if you in America, if you've got some obscure disease, then none of the doctors have ever come across it before. Whereas in India, there's 10 other they've had 10 other patients that week with the same issue. And it is true, a bunch of the doctors in India, I was speaking to the guy and they had studied and worked in England. They're not going to some random place. He's like, oh, I studied at this medical university in England. So they're saying it's quantity of people. I'm not sure what attributes make Turkey the leading bit for hair transplants and stuff.
All right, I'm going to do a deep dive on the Turkey hair transplant thing. It's insane. I have seen so many people do this. I think it's basically 10 times less or something than in the US. So, I think there's obviously a cost component, but I just don't know why Turkey.
There's this funny photo that this guy shared online where he was on his way back from Turkey on the airplane, and he took a picture of all the men sitting on the plane, and there was literally 10 heads that you could tell the hair had just gotten sewn in, and so I was like, holy shit, this thing is big.
Yeah, there's Instagram influencer transplant daddies that are the Turkish guys, and they're just every day that's the content that they're posting. And it seems like a kind of incredible business for whatever reason.
You have this thing on here. We asked you in advance what you want to talk about. You had this thing on here that I thought was interesting. And I don't know exactly what it means, but it sounds intriguing. You're like, there's a counter to founder beast mode. What does that mean?
It was funny because at the Camp MFM, I was trying to explain to Mr. Beast the project that I'm working on now. So I was saying people working in tech and then they get burned out so I'm building a place for them to detox from technology and recover from burnout. And he's like, I literally cannot relate at all to this idea because I just don't get burned out. But he has an amazing strategy. But the thing is 99% of people can't do this, which is he said, I'm either on 100% or I'm off 100%. So he said, I'll just work like 7 days in a row until I pass out and sleep. And I'll just keep waking up every day, and just keep doing that. But then when I feel that I'm getting burned out, I'll just do zero work. And I'll just watch documentaries all day and just procrastinate all day. I'll feel better again, and then I'll go 100. But it could also be that, he's in his 20s, like he's not super old. Like I was speaking to this other Portuguese startup here, and they're like, yeah, I don't know what burnout is either. But they're like 23, and they're just like working all these hours. And I said, one analogy I thought of is like, I went to this thing like Y Combinator, Angel Pad, and I've never worked that hard or achieved that much in 3 months. It's 90 days. I just worked so intensely, and we just got amazing stuff done. We raised 2 million in funding. We came up with a business idea. We managed to get a CTO to join our team. We achieved loads of stuff. But for me, that was a 90-day sprint. If you're just trying to do that endlessly, it's like telling Usain Bolt, like, okay, great, you just ran the 100 meters, just keep up that pace. We're now doing a marathon, but just keep up that same pace you ran the 100 meters in. It doesn't work. Like at some point, you might feel like it's going okay, but at some point, I feel like you are going to burn out. So for me, balance is important, and not having tunnel vision, just be like, I'm being productive. I feel procrastination can have benefits as well. The way we came up with the idea for Vungle is we were just playing around with a bunch of different mobile apps, and we wanted to record a meeting with one of the coaches that we had there. So we're like, hey, is it okay if we just record the meeting to take notes? And so we opened this voice recording app, and then it was free. And then it started blaring some video ad on like full volume. And then that called for like Coca-Cola or something. And actually that's how we got the idea. Like, wait a minute, what if these ads, instead of being really intrusive and advertising something not relevant to us, what if they were advertising based on our user profiles, other apps that we might like? So it's that kind of balance, I think.
Yeah, I think what you're saying makes a ton of sense. I think about everything in either seasons or gears. Those are words I use a lot, which is, there are seasons of life, seasons where you're going to sprint and focus, seasons where you're going to explore and wander. I find it very useful for myself to label the seasons, know what season I'm in, and embrace that season. Because if you're in the season of wander, it's very easy to feel really anxious that you're not being productive. But you have to remind yourself that's not what this season is. This is a season of sort of exploring, dabbling, whatever. If you're in a season of productivity or focus, you might feel guilty for saying no to go into your friend's thing or to go into this event or whatever. But you remind yourself that's what this season is. And this won't last forever. The fact that it's time boxed as a season, maybe it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year, is very useful because okay, this is not forever, but for now, this is the right thing to do. The other thing I talk about is gears. Like I need to have multiple gears like a car that I can shift into and out of. Personal life, I do this with like, I can be in work, creator, boss mode, but if I bring that guy to my marriage, it's not a great marriage, right? So I need to be a different guy when it comes to marriage. When it comes to my kids, I'm silly, playful dad. And so I like intentionally think, okay, like I almost visualize in my head, like I'm shifting gears now. I'm going to be that other guy. And I want to have a few of these characters that are very useful to me, versions of me that I can say, all right, you're driving now. I'm going to a workout. So it's not silly, playful dad. It's more of the workout, which is like the guy who's willing to push harder to be, a little more intense. And so I think you want to have both. I think you want to be able to, when you know what to do, be able to focus. And when something's not working, be able to zoom out and go wider, diverge and dabble and sort of procrastinate and play until you figure out something worth focusing on. Not everything is obviously worth focusing on. So I definitely agree with you there. I also think that the stage of life, right, matters a lot, right? When I first met Sam and I met you, Jack, I was probably 24, 25 years old. I remember that year I slept in the office, I think 215 days out of the year. It was a nice office, but still, I was just like totally devoted to it. I don't think I was particularly productive. I was just like willing to throw everything at this. And when I wasn't at the office, I was doing our mastermind dinners. I was doing other things that I thought might help me be successful because it was really the only thing I cared about at that time was to be successful. Now I'm 36 years old. I don't have that same burning desire to be successful. I care about other things. And so, what today makes no sense to me made a lot of sense back then and vice versa. So, I think I agree with pretty much everything you said. I don't think it's at odds with the way that I operate, at least.
Well, one bit I did thought was interesting to think about is that for me, actually, people don't put enough time into thinking what they want. And I think Shaan, like us you just touched on it, Shaan, but all of us, I think, did clearly, we knew our North Star, why we're working really hard, right? And Mr. Beast, I told Sam, I was not joking, but Sam was like laughing off, but I was serious. I was like, I think Mr. Beast, if he wanted, he can be president of the US at some point. Because he just, since the age of 15, has just had one goal and it's not changed for 10 whatever years. He just said, I want to be the number one on YouTube. And that has not changed. He's not changed that. And he said no to a bunch of things, but he just decided on that and went all in on that and surrounded himself by other people who were chasing the same goal. But it was just all in on that. It kind of struck me a bit that I think actually a lot of people don't put enough time into thinking what they want.
Yeah, you brought up something that I get pretty fired up about, which is figuring out what you want and taking the time to do it. I think I've been really bad about this. The reason I get fired up is because I look back at years of my life I spent on the wrong things. And, that's a very expensive thing. Like years in my 20s are sort of like prime assets. That's the beachfront real estate of my life. And if I spent it on things that I didn't really think through, or actually in retrospect were sort of obviously dumb things to work on, that brought a lot of kind of like lessons learned for me. And I
what was that lesson?
Project selection is the most important thing. That amongst talented people, the biggest sort of variable that actually happens, assume you're going to do the table stakes, right? Which is you're not going to do the thing Jack's talking about. Like you're not going to just not like take no action on something. Like I was already past that. I was going to take action. I was going to work like hard enough. Maybe I wasn't going to be the hardest worker on earth, but I was willing to work hard enough to make the thing happen. And again, I'm also like intelligent enough. I'm not the smartest guy, but that's not the reason I'm going to fail, is because I just can't figure something out. Okay, so there's me and like, I don't know, everybody I knew, all of my friends, we're all in that same boat. We all wanted it. We're willing to take action, willing to work hard enough, and we're all about smart enough to figure things out. So what was the biggest difference in like where everybody landed and how their life went? And it was project selection. It was, the people like at the time when I sort of started to think about this, I was trying to build a sushi restaurant. It's like, okay, building a restaurant is probably, on the low end of like poor project selection decisions, especially for somebody like me who didn't have a passion for food, nor was like, that was not my dream. Like I did not get joy out of making food every day or, bringing to life, a menu or whatever. So it's absolutely the wrong project for me. And then I just sort of made similar mistakes along the way. When I had a golden opportunity where, the Birch family believed in me, they hired me, they named me CEO, they give me a blank check and a team full of engineers. And basically they funded like $15 million and a bunch of engineers to running this idea lab where I could think of any idea I wanted. But the one boundary box was it had to be kind of consumer. And then he liked social and I liked social and everybody liked social. And the idea that we could create the next Twitter, next Facebook, that was so sexy. But it was, again, like pretty terrible project selection where, the odds of success, even amongst the most brilliant people, are sort of like like there's like 6 people who have done it, in the last 30 years, period. 6 human beings on earth that have made like a Snapchat, a Twitter, or whatever. And so again, poor project selection, like at a time where what I really cared about was being successful, I was choosing a project that had like almost no chance of being successful. And I really wasn't smart enough to see the opportunities around me that were much, much better for me at the time. But I want to read you this thing. I was reading this essay by Paul Graham. It's called Why Smart People Have Bad Ideas. And he talks about this exact thing. Before he started Y Combinator, he did ViaWeb. But before he did ViaWeb, have you guys heard of the startup he did before that?
No. Not that I can remember.
It's something called Artix. And so basically, it was like 1995. And they have this idea called Artix. And it's basically to put web galleries online. And he's like, oh, it's great because I love painting. I love art. I'm kind of like a programmer. I understand like this internet thing is here and that seems important. So like, what's the internet idea? I should marry my 2 hobbies, art on the internet. And he's like, cool. And so he says, in retrospect, I wonder how we could have wasted our time on something so stupid. Galleries were not excited about being on the web, even now, decades later, let alone back in 1995. They don't want to have all their stock visible to some random online anonymous visitor. Like that's not how the art world works. And he's like, basically, we couldn't sell the thing. Like we couldn't get any customers. And he's like, by the way, we're not alone here. Like Paul Allen and Bill Gates, before they started Microsoft, they started, Trafo Data. And he's like, it was not anywhere near as successful as Microsoft, like same talent, but working on the wrong project. Alex Hormozi had a great way of saying this. He said, when he was doing his gym business, he went to like a mastermind. And at the mastermind, the guy was like, cool, I heard everything you just said about how you've made your 5 gyms successful. He's like, you're like a 9 out of 10 execution on a 2 out of 10 opportunity. And you're asking us how to execute better when actually you should be realizing that you're only working on a 2 out of 10 opportunity. For me, that was sushi restaurants. For him, that was running brick and mortar gyms. And once he changed what he was doing, like he didn't have to work 10 times harder, but he could get literally 100 times the level of success. So Paul Graham says this thing, he goes, so why does this happen? Why do hackers have bad business ideas? Let's look at our case. We had such a lame idea because it was the first thing we thought of. I was in New York trying to be a starving artist at the time. The starving part was easy. And he's like, I was looking at art galleries anyways. And when I learned to make website, it seemed natural to mix the two together. He goes, if you're going to spend years working on something, it might be wise to at least spend a few days considering different ideas instead of just going with the first idea that comes in your head. You would think, but people don't. In fact, this is a constant problem, even in just the world of painting. If you want to go be a still life painter, you would sit down in front of your table with all your materials, and you might spend 5 minutes thinking about what you're going to paint, but it's hard to spend more time than that looking at the blank canvas. We get so impatient that we just start painting anything. But the problem is painting takes time. It could take days, weeks, months to finish a painting. You're going to go back and wish, halfway through that maybe you had thought about what you actually wanted to paint, but it's too late. You've already kicked it off just because you couldn't sit there, for an hour thinking about what to work on. And basically says that this is the same thing they see in YC too, that basically founders will pick an idea because it's too uncomfortable to sit in the not knowing and think about what you actually want to do and what actually might be interesting for you, what actually might be a good idea. And so we just start. And this is what I was guilty of at the beginning, was just starting. And it seems like, cool, I'll change it later. But once you start, you get wed to it. Like I remember when we thought about pivoting, we only thought about pivoting to other restaurant ideas or other online delivery things. It was like, we could only think inside this box because anything else felt like admitting failure, giving up, starting from scratch, going back to the bottom of the mountain. Even though that might have been the right way to do it, it mentally was far too hard to do that.
I think maybe I might have mentioned this on a previous episode, but I can't remember. But actually, Mark Andreessen has something he says like, the most important factor in determining if a startup will be successful, like $1 billion company. He said most investors think like it's the team or the actual product or idea, like, oh, wow, that's an amazing team. And he said he thinks it's none of those. He thinks the most important factor is the market, size of the market and growth rate. He's saying if you just have a crappy market, you can have amazing execution, the best team ever, but they're inhibited into how big a company they can build by the size of the market.
Yeah, there's a funny business school like anecdote where a guy comes in and he's giving this talk and he says, all right, business school, you want to create like a successful like hot dog stand? What's the number one factor of success for a hot dog stand? And hand goes up, location. He says not location. They say, ingredients, having the highest quality product. You want to have the best product on the market. He says, nope. They say marketing. You got to be able to get the word out there and spread your story. Nope. He says the number one thing to make a successful hot dog stand is a starving crowd. And he said, just in general, as a lesson of entrepreneurship, like you should be hunting for starving crowds. Because if you go to a starving crowd, even without the best marketing, without the best product, without the best team or execution, you will still succeed. And I forgot the phrase here, but it's like when a great entrepreneur meets a bad market. Only one of them keeps their reputation. The bad market keeps their reputation. Whereas if it's a great market and you're even an okay entrepreneur, you'll still be successful. It's a very hard lesson to internalize, but it's proven very true in my life at least.
It's really hard to pick a great market. We were lucky that we did, and many other companies in the same industry as us also became really big companies, but luck, a big factor there.
Yeah, I remember you telling a story about Vungle. So Vungle made like video ads for iPhone apps, and one of Shaan's buddies helped start this thing called AppLovin, which became this huge thing. And it's the same type of company, and I don't know what it was worth, Shaan, like 30 or 40 billion, like a huge sum. And I remember, Jack, I forget exactly how you phrased this, but you're like, we only did okay, and we had a $750 million exit. We could have been like as big as these other ones because the market just pulled this out of us. Like people were just begging for this product, and like you weren't technical at the time, or you weren't very technical. Your partner wasn't technical, I don't think at all. And I'm like, how on earth you do this? Because I think when you had sold, there was some article that said Vungle was making $1 million a day. So you guys were going to do $360 million the year you sold in revenue. And you were just saying, you're like, dude, people are just begging for this thing. And we just got so lucky that we just picked it right when the iPhone came out. And we got really lucky with that because we didn't do that good. Our competitors, AppLovin, they were 30 times bigger or whatever the AppLovin market cap is.
They're a $28 billion company right now.
Yeah. And they're literally 30 times bigger. And we only did okay, but we still, made $800 million or whatever. And that kind of I learned that lesson from you about picking the right market.
So when Furkan, who's my co-founder at Bebo, he was previously the CTO and co-founder of AppLovin. And so when he joined, AppLovin was doing really well back then, but it didn't look like a $30 billion company. It looked like a $1 billion company. But I was like, wow, this guy built $1 billion company. Now he's sitting here next to me and we're working on the next thing from scratch. It's like, what can I learn from this guy? So I was like, how did you guys get that idea? And basically what he told me was a kind of interesting story, Jack, to your point about procrastination. He was like, two things happened. He's like, the first was when I joined, I wasn't the co-founder or the CTO. I joined as an engineer, and he's really good. He's obviously amazing. And so right away they were like, hey, we think we have the wrong team. We have too many people here. We don't have product market fit. We just have too many people, which is a great CEO move.
Shaan, was the we even AppLovin, or was it some other idea?
They were doing a clothing business.
It was Style Page. They're trying to make a Pinterest competitor at the time. Well, that was one of the many ideas. So basically I think they were a dating thing first and then whatever. So there was they had 10 or 12 people. He joined, and the CEO, Adam, who's proven to be a pretty killer guy, was like, hey, we don't know what we're doing, but we do know that this is probably not the right team. Can you just basically restart this? He's like, so just anybody who you don't think is the hardcore, just down to figure this out, let's get rid of them and let's go leaner and let's figure this out. So first thing they do, they fire everybody, right? It's not what you would consider to be the origin story of a $30 billion company. Then now they have 4 or 5 people. So 3 co-founders plus Furkan as the 4th co-founder, and I think maybe one other guy. And they are cycling through ideas. And so the founders previously had made 40 or 50 million bucks doing a dating, it was an ad network, but I think for dating sites. And so that's what they knew. They knew ad networks, but it was for, generation 1 of the web. And they had money to fund this. I think he put $4 million in to fund the thing. And then they were like, we're going to create the next Pinterest. They saw Pinterest getting hot, so they tried to create a Pinterest competitor. Then they're like, dude, we're just 4 non-stylish dudes trying to do this. This is not working. Then they created this Life 360 type of app. And they created 8 or 9 ideas. And I was like, so what was it like? You were going in there, you're brainstorming every day, you're doing research. What was it? He's like, no, not really. Basically one person would come in with some inspiration, hey, I saw this is crushing it. Or you ever noticed this problem? And then we would quickly try to build a prototype, take it to market and see what happens, see if it stuck, see if we got momentum. He's like, but more often than not, he's like, honestly, I don't know, 20 to 30% of the days we would just come in, we just weren't inspired and we weren't going to work on something that we didn't feel inspired by. So we would just play FIFA for 5 hours and then we would all go home. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, we were literally, if we just didn't feel it, if the idea wasn't solid, that we didn't feel like there was something there, we didn't want to busy ourselves and occupy ourselves with a not good idea. Because then that would at least, it's like dating somebody bad. You don't have the door open to meet somebody amazing. And so he's like, we would just play FIFA. And he's like, while we're playing FIFA, we would just talk, then we would order food, then we would talk some more. And we're just giving ourselves relax the brain to try to come up with ideas. He's like, then Adam went to a conference, and this was right when iPhone had taken off. And he's came home and he's like, forget it. We're doing an ad network, but for mobile phones. He's like, mobile phones are going to be big. They don't really have good ad networks. I know how to do an ad network. That's what we're doing. And he's like, because they knew that business, he's like, he told me exactly what to build. It was this is a dashboard that I need. This is how this product is going to work. This is the speed that you need to serve the ad in. And if you can't get it under that speed, we got to figure something else out. And they just executed crazy at that point, and it just took off. And they were doing hundreds of millions of dollars at that time, very profitably, and it was amazing. I'll tell you one other story that kind of shifted my thinking. So that was one about not occupying yourself, not busying yourself in order to create some space for maybe a good idea to land. The other thing that stood out was somewhere along the way, Furkan likes to take these like young engineers under his wing. So like he met these guys, they were kind of interesting. He's like, you need to move to Silicon Valley, come live on my couch. And he convinced them, like, just come sleep on my couch. Don't worry too much. Just come out here for a few months. And of course, that turned into they just lived there permanently in San Francisco. They ended up getting to YC. And we let them work out of our office. And you can learn something from anybody. These were 20-year-old kids who had never built a business before, but I was talking to them and I learned something really important. They're working on this idea that had started off really strong. What they were doing was they took Bitcoin miners, so anybody who had a bunch of GPU space, and they were like, hey, this machine learning AI thing is going to be big. This was back in like 2016, maybe 2017. They're like, machine learning is going to be big. And these GPUs are really good at running machine learning jobs. So there's Bitcoin miners who have excess capacity because maybe Bitcoin price would go down, then it wasn't profitable to mine, or they just bought out extra and they were like wanted something more steady. And he was like, he posted on Reddit, he was like, hey, if you have excess GPUs, if you're a miner, you have excess GPUs, list it on our network and we will get machine learning customers for you to run jobs, almost like an AWS competitor.
Crazy.
And overnight, like they got like so much supply of GPUs. It was insane. Like there was like thousands of submissions in one day. People were super excited. Like Reddit comments were like, oh, this is amazing. Let me know how I can help. Like calling him, finding his phone number and calling him. And I was like, wow, this is kind of incredible. And then what happened was a few months later, he was kind of down on the idea. And I was like, what happened? He goes, well, the supply side was amazing. It was like I stepped on a landmine. It just blew up. And he's like, but the demand side doesn't have that same effect. He's like, but because I felt it over here, I kind of realized like what true demand looks like. And I remember thinking like, damn, I have never felt that landmine effect. And at that time, I had just never felt it. I didn't feel that market pull that you were talking about. And if you don't know it, you kind of talk yourself into like, oh, maybe I have it. Maybe this is, there are signals of demand. And there's the difference between like, maybe it's there versus holy shit, we found something. And I wouldn't say you have to have a holy shit, you found something thing right away. But just seeing that in those guys kind of taught me, what I thought was level 10 of what demand looks like for a business, for a new startup, it was actually level 6. And level 10 is what these guys experience, where you have like a half-baked Google form and still people are like prepaying you for the service type of thing. Oh, okay, that's what 10 looks like. Now at least I know what that looks like. That's what a great market looks like. And what I have right now is a lukewarm market, which is why I ended up having like a lukewarm, success out of that business.
Really hard to find that 10 out of 10 market, but yeah, that is what we had. And I think his Mark Andreessen says, if you find that 10 out of 10 market, which is kind of a unicorn, right? That the amazing market will pull the right product out of the company. Like, right. So for us, we just identified mobile apps as the market that was amazing, but we actually tried out 6 different business ideas. Like we created landing pages for each. In the space of something like 2-3 weeks, we iterated on 6 different ideas, and the right idea, the market pulled it out of us.
Dude, that's so good. I love hearing these stories. Jack, I love seeing you.
Yeah, great to see you.
You look good.
Thank you.
Wait, before we go, Jack, do you have a book recommendation for me? Last time you came on here, you talked about the guy who unschooled himself or was unschooled as a kid. I thought that was a really cool book. Do you have any new book recommendations for me?
Yeah, one that I read that actually, you could read it in like an hour or so, and then thought you guys might find interesting because we just talked about coming up with the business idea, right? And this, I think, actually is more helpful at our stage of life where you maybe have one success, and many founders who've sold their company have a midlife crisis. They don't know what to work on next. And this book is by Deepak Chopra, and it's called The 7 Spiritual Rules of Success. And I thought it was really interesting. So it's basically saying that his theory, if you like, is saying everyone is put on earth to fulfill some purpose. And everyone has like a unique skill or skills and attributes that they can uniquely use to kind of serve the rest of society. And he's like, you have found your goal when you blend your talent with service to others. And I thought what's really interesting, and actually because maybe just, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I had just read Tony Robbins' book, but I did actually feel like Tony Robbins is perhaps the ultimate embodiment of that. Because I didn't know this, but Tony then found he had like a tumor on his brain, that has made his body release like loads of human growth hormone. And so basically that's why he's 6'7". He's just a massive giant growth spurt, but he also feels like he has abundant energy. And he's kind of using that unique attribute that it's very rare to have this tumor on the brain. Like the doctor told him, dude, you should act on this and get rid of it. But there's a risk you might then get lower energy. And it's like, dude, I'm not having surgery then because this is my unique thing, the abundant energy. And he uses that to do these 15-hour whatever seminars. So that's his thing that's unique to the world. And in his kind of serving humanity in his own way, it seems that he's just really passionate about this Meals for America. So I don't know if he's hit the goal, but he was on track to hit donating 1 billion meals for this Feed America thing. And during COVID, he donated like $10 million to help it get through that point. So I kind of felt like he was the unique embodiment of that. And then even with you guys then as well, like I think like when I was talking to like Ben Levy, you know, Shaan, you're thinking about what attributes are unique to you that you can kind of uniquely serve the world. And so that book I found was interesting and a quick read.
What do you think that is for you?
Well, for me, I think it is where I've naturally ended up doing this digital detox, whatever center place, because I have the capital to do it. Like, I'm meeting a lot of people trying to do physical projects and then they just fail because of fundraising and capital and stuff. So I think I have the capital and I have the experience of experiencing burnout, and I'm just uniquely passionate. I've been to this place in Bali, like they basically like, dude, this is your second home. Like you come here so much. So you have that unique insight about how this can help humanity. And that's maybe why I'm driving the project, and I'm doing it for kind of helping humanity, not profit, as number one. So I feel that I kind of just naturally have, through reflection and etc., arrived at this place. Deepak Chopra said the way to find your unique purpose, if you're struggling, he said, it comes to you in the space between your thoughts. And he said, like, which is maybe not hard to action, but he's like, if you're really struggling to find your purpose, etc., you should spend more time in nature and just in a quiet environment and just feel, and it will come to you. But I kind of feel that, yeah, for me, it's kind of organically. I'd been thinking about this for many years and arrived at this place.
That's cool, man. I'll check that book out.
Thank you, dude. We
Thanks
appreciate
so
you doing this.
Absolutely.
You're the best. And that's it. That's the pod.
I feel like I could rule the world. I know I could be what I want to. I put my all in it like no days off. On the road, let's travel, never looking back.